Hello and welcome back to more Mechabellum. This is a replay. I am Hazefest. And let's see here. We're up against Digi0815 and he decides to go Amplify Specialist, starting with the Void Eye and the Mustang. I decided to go Fire Badger Specialist, picking the Sledgehammer and Void Eye. Opponent decides to also go Crawlers here with his starting pack. And he sets back a little bit further with his Mustang and his Crawlers. He's applying his Mustangs with the Amp Cores from his Specialist. I decide to open up with some Arc Lights to complement my Sledgehammer and Void Eyes, since we are lacking the Chaff Clear. As usual, I check the recommended formations, and I move my arc light from in front of the tower to the left side in case later in the game we get a flank. My arc light will turn to face that flank. All right, and off we go. Round one, here we are. My units are awfully slow compared to his. We immediately engage the chaff. The only chaff clear we have are the arc lights, and I think that should be sufficient enough. That left side arc light is not going to be able to hold. My main army is making quite the impact on his units. My Void Eyes are running the carry technologies that I like to use for my Void Eyes, and that is zero cost energy absorption suppression shots, which give them range and remove range from my opponent units, and then aerial mode, which converts them into air-ground attackers, as well as giving them flying, and then lastly, range. We are lucky enough to take round one after losing our tower. That's pretty impressive. Round two, we get some item drops. And here we have the deployment module for my opponent. And I decide to pick up that haste module, throwing it on my right side Void Eye, since he is the furthest from the fight. Figure that extra speed will help get him where he needs to be to throw out that DPS. My opponent decides to go Saber-Tooth Tanks, and he throws a deployment module on one on the far front here to go after my tower, and he throws an Amp Core on the one on the far right that's with his main army as a tanky boy. This round I decide to go Crawlers, and I'm going to throw that with my main army to give them a little bit more staying power in the fight. That chaff can take the damage in place of my more valuable units. And that's pretty much the role of chaff. Very seldom will you get chaff that actually gets in, does a tremendous amount of damage, enough to actually make you go, huh, I should level that. I decide to go mass recruitment, grabbing another arc light. And I decide that I need a little bit more support to defend my left side tower. So I throw it over there, unknowingly going against a Saber-Tooth, which will ultimately spell doom for my two arc light. I throw a missile over here to bolster the confidence of my two arc light, which is not going to make much of a difference in this battle. All right, on the right side, we engage that Saber-Tooth, and we do a buttload of damage to it. We instantly get locks-ons with my haste module Void Eyes, and the Saber-Tooth goes down as the Crawlers go in and give it a kiss. Left side, we get absolutely obliterated by that tank. We lose our tower, and we're in absolute panic mode here. There's still a lot of stuff on the front line, and I don't know if we're going to get through it. Let's see what happens. Arclight is now tanking all of this damage, and it looks like we're not going to be able to make it through this round. That tank is slowly approaching, and that's going to just ruin any chance of finishing off this round. All right. Round three, we get unit drops. My opponent goes for the chaff, so the 4x Fang. I decided to go for Phoenix because I feel like I need a little bit of extra damage against these Saber-Tooths. I slap that on the left side to support my arc light. If my Phoenix, which is much faster, can get in and do two shots onto the Saber-Tooth, it will explode. This round we also get our Fire Badger from our specialty. Totally forgot about that. Opponent levels up his Void Eyes, and mine are still very much level 1. Nobody has leveled on my board. Feels pretty bad. Even though we've been crushing in the rounds, we still have not gotten that sweet, sweet XP. Most of the early game XP comes from killing towers. If you can get towers, it's 200 XP per kill for the unit that gets the hits. I decided to go range onto my Void Eye pretty early here. We only have 3 sets of Void Eyes, and you'll see how much of a difference this makes. Takes them to 140 meter range. Opponent is currently sitting at 100 on his Void Eyes, and these Mustangs are sitting at 95. So these are going to be shooting beams from downtown. Opponent decides to get Marksman. He throws the Marksman in, going up against my Phoenix unknowingly. He now has 2 sets of fangs on the outside protecting his tank, and I throw some crawlers over there to distract my opponent. I totally forget about the Fire Badgers, and I just leave them unmoved. So they will get sold next round because they're in a terrible position. Because I was not paying attention. Left side, the air units take down that saber-toothed tank, which is what we needed. Crawlers get in, and the tank on the right gets destroyed. The range is making a huge difference here. We're just able to pick apart our opponent while they can't even fight back. My air units will go down to that Marksman and the Mustang there. But I think we can take this round. We'll speed it up a little bit. We take the tower on the right side. My units are now heading across the way and taking out the opponent's units before they can even get damage onto the tower. Round 4. We get more item reinforcements here. Opponent decides to take the heavy armor. I'm looking at my board and I decide, I want to take this haste module. And I'm going to slap that haste module onto the backline Void Eyes that are still pretty far away from the fight. I want these guys to be able to kill their units and move left as quickly as possible. I level up my Void Eyes on the back. Got 2 Void Eyes that leveled. I noticed that my Fire Badger is still here, so I'm going to go ahead and sell that. I also range the Arclight units, and I grab additional crawlers for myself. Opponent decides to go Scorpion here, so he adds 2 Scorpions to the front line, levels up his Mustangs in the back with the Amp Core, and levels up his Marksman to level 2 that killed my Phoenix. I sell off the Fire Badgers, and I'm trying to figure out what I should do. Got 150 money in the bank. Contemplating. The opponent's choices this game have been pretty solid. I decided to go in for a sneaky flank in the top left. All these units are going to ignore it because they're all going to move forward. If I put the flank any closer, these units would have turned to fight me. But since they're so far back, they're going to get ignored by the board. Well, some of these guys will turn. My mistake. But it won't be enough to deal with the flank. I decided to also get attack enhancement level 1 for my units, and I throw a late missile to deal with these fangs so I can clear the way for these Phoenix to lock onto this tank. We pull more than I expected to the left side flank. That's not going to work. My crawlers are going to die. So the focus is going to be here in the front. Chaff is coming in and doing its job of confusing the enemy AI while we use our backline forces to drill through the DPS units on the enemy board. My high-level Phoenix are taking out this Scorpion, and the right side, all of these Void Eyes melt the right side of the board. Not much of a contest. None of them have taken any damage. There's just such long range that it's hard to compete. And the opponent goes down to, what is that? 3,700 life. We get spells and item reinforcements again. Opponent goes for offensive tactics, increasing the damage of all his units. This was a poor investment for him, and you'll see why as the game continues. He doesn't know that yet. I choose Orbital Bombardment and go in the middle, trying to hit as many of those units as I can. I decide to throw some shields down, thinking that he was also going to pick Orbital Bombardment against my units here that were doing pretty well. All of my Void Eyes are now level 3. I think it's time that I start getting additional Void Eyes. Arc Lights come down. I'm sorry, Arc Lights level, so I give them level 2. Opponent's doing some crazy mobile beacon shenanigans. I'm not sure what this is about. And I decided to put down some missiles to clear the way to get to that Sabertooth for my air units. I decided to get some more chaff. I guess it's not time for Sabertooth or for Void Eyes just yet. I get additional chaff and I move it around. I put one in the shallow flank here to confuse the enemy units. Try to pull some of them away from the main fight. And what else is happening? We doing anything else? I have 350 money in the bank. I'm trying to decide what to do with it. Come on, what am I going to do with it? I go mass recruit, additional Void Eyes. Where do I put them? I put them on the right side. In the middle, underneath my shield, thinking that I was going to get orbital bombardment. My opponent decides to go for that damage instead. So my opponent's units are doing a lot more damage, but unfortunately, my Void Eye are just too far away to hit. Left side flanks are dealt with. My air units go down. My left side's crumbling. Right side, however, is absolutely dominating the field. These ranged scorpions are actually able to hit my crawlers. They have 140 meter range, same range as my Void Eye. Once I realize this, I decide that it's time to get even further range. My opponent takes out my tower shortly after losing their own tower. And during the debuff, my units are getting absolutely destroyed here. In just a moment here, I'll take their tower, and then the ties will shift in my favor once again. So even though the opponent chose to do a lot more damage with his units, a lot of them just aren't connecting because we're just so far away with our Void Eyes. And the Void Eyes actually do a respectable amount of damage. This round is round 6. We get unit drops. Opponent gets a level 3 Farseer here. I'm looking at this and I decide that I want to go Sandworm. Level 2 Sandworm for me. The opponent gets the Farseer, and the Farseer is fantastic. It does way better than I expected this game. Notably, my 2 Void Eye with the items that do haste modules, they are level 3 now. So I'm going to level those guys up. Let's see here. What do I do? I'm analyzing the board at this point. I decide I need more chaff. So I get a little bit more chaff. I decide to throw my level 2 Sandworm on the right side to kind of deal with this left side and pressure it. And I decided to throw some crawlers into the back here to get rid of this missile. And to give my opponent something to worry about. And pull some of this trash towards the back, so that I can deal with the front a little faster. On the front side, I decide to go suppression shots, which give my units 155 meter range, which now outrange the Scorpion, which is what I was going for. But not only does it outrange the Scorpions, it now removes the enemy range 30%. So we're going to be taking their range away while continuing to hit them in the face. Opponent decides to upgrade his defense, his HP, and his attack to level 2. His HP is level 1, his attack is level 2. So his units are doing 30% extra damage. So you can see how far we're shooting with our Void Eyes. And again, we only have Void Eyes on the right side of the map. Our left side flank does not work. And we take the Sabertooth down, but our air units are going down as I speak. The right side level 2 Sandworm is still alive, distracting the enemies very nicely. And we are punching through and now getting onto the tower with the Void Eyes from halfway across the map. The opponent takes our tower, we now take their tower, and we start to turn. These units are coming in slow. This Farseer here is insane. But unfortunately, it doesn't have enough range to deal with our units. Sandworm is still alive. Once it dies, we have just a couple of units here left. All of my DPS units are destroyed now, and I cannot stop this Scorpion and Marksman combo. All I have is 6 pieces of chaff, and they're about to go down to these fangs. I lose a shield, and also the round. I go down to 3,800 life. Opponent's still at 3,200. So we're about even. We get more spells and enhancements. We both decide to take the photon coating. I decided to put the photon coating onto my worm. He puts the photon coating onto a melting point. At this point, I start recruiting Void Eyes at level 2. So I get the elite recruitment. I mass recruit a bunch of Void Eyes. So now I have 3 more on the left side to help push the DPS forward, since we're losing this side pretty hard. I put down some missiles to help deal with the flanks coming in. My opponent levels up his Mustangs to level 2. I put down a missile on the right side here because I noticed he had Stormcallers in the last round. And I did not expect the melting point here, but it makes sense now that he's dealing with a worm. So, yeah. Melting point. My worm is not going to be very effective. At this point, I probably should sell it. But I click the mechanical division option. So when the worm goes down, it spawns 4 lava. That way, it can continue to occupy the enemy unit's time. Because we need as much time as we can for our Void Eyes to just plink away our enemy's HP from a distance. Opponent goes for a mobile beacon to the right to kind of help out on the right side, just to put more chaff in front of my units. The left side Farseer is doing a buttload of damage. My worm is on the melting point, and the worm goes down and the larva kill the melting point. These Void Eyes now have energy absorption as well, so they got 40% increased life, and any damage they deal, they'll heal some of that back. And you can see that the range here is just insane. We get the tower, and we start moving left. And these Void Eyes, even though they're level 2, are taking on units level 3, and many of them. And they're just chewing through them so fast. Round 8, we get more item reinforcements. We both decide, or spell reinforcements, I guess. We both decide to take photon coating here. He puts it on the right side where my worm is. I put it on the left side where I'm starting to lose, or I'm taking the most damage. Because even though I have Void Eyes over here, his units are still getting in and hitting my units. So that means I need more DPS over there. Let's see here. Opponent decides to get more Scorpion. And he puts down a missile on the line trying to go after my tanks. I grab more chaff. And I decide, now that I see the melting point is here, I'm going to put chaff along here on the right side flank to give this melting point some busy work. That way my worm can get in and start slapping people with its big mechanical jaw. I see that he put crawlers up next to my worm as well, so it's going to be kind of hard to deal with that. I'm not sure if this is his missile or mine. I think it's his. I decide to mobile beacon my worm straight into his tower. And I'm not sure if that's going to work, but that's my play. Let's see. Anything else happen this round? I have not gone aerial mode. I decide to borrow money and grab range and mobility, and I level up some units. All right, round start. My left side flank isn't going to go anywhere, so we're just going to focus on the right side here. My worm is slapping people. It hasn't even moved. The melting point gets stuck on the chaff on the back, and now is on my worm. My Void Eyes are slapping the Sabertooth in the face, and now all of his units are getting destroyed. So often people do not level or tech their Void Eyes. They just let them rot. He got to level 2 on his Void Eyes, but he stopped there. On the left side, we are struggling against this level 3 Farseer. On the right side, we are still dealing with this Melting Point, but we've got it down to 91 range versus our 170 range. So it's 170 range versus 98 for the Farseer and 91 for the Melting Point. Unfortunately, this Farseer is absolutely doing a hell of a lot of work on me. And the opponent lives with a Stormcaller and some Mustangs and the Farseer. Round 9, we get unit drops. Opponent decides to go for the Mountain. Oh boy. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do here. I decided to go with the level 3 Wasps. There's 2 packs of them. I feel like they run good interference for this Melting Point, since our ground chaff is struggling to get in and get in the face of this Melting Point. And a Mountain shows up right behind his little brother here. And I'm not sure what to do about that. That's a lot of Mountain. 174,000 HP out of nowhere, compared to my 1,000 HP Wasps. I decide to use the armor-piercing bullets on my Wasp. I'm not really thrilled with this tech. I've been trying to use it since they changed the cost on it. I figured I'd try it out. But it's not amazing. I think running ground specialty is much better for that 200% damage rather than the 50% overall damage for air and ground. Opponent decides to get multi-melter, energy diffraction, and energy absorption. And he gets a second melter and puts it on the left side. I decided to range my sledgehammer because I'm running out of things to do with my money. I also picked up defense enhancement 2. I'm sitting at 100 money. I don't know what to do with it. I ended up picking 3 more Void Eyes and throwing them on the left side. Elite recruited level 2. And I just level up some units with the last bit. I also get range and speed. Alright, our opponent is destroying my backline crawler flanks. It's all up to the Void Eyes now. They are peppering the line. Right side, my Sandworm is getting in and taking on that Melter. Sandworm goes down. Melting Point's dealing with all of the Wasp chaff that I have in its face, and it's winning. But more importantly, the chaff is holding it there while my Void Eyes DPS it. And now this Mountain only has 70-meter range, and my units can just destroy all of his units because they can't fight back. I literally tie one hand behind their back and punch them in the face until they die. Alright, my chaff is down, and before the Mountain can fire again, my Void Eyes take them down. Round 10. We get more item reinforcements. I decide to go for the firepower control system, and my opponent decides to go for heavy armor. My opponent decides to get another Melting Point that he put on the left and move it to the right. And he also, let's see here. I level up some units. I throw down the orbital beacon onto his large pack of units. I decide to beacon my Sandworm back to my firing line. That way it can move in later in the round and become chaff again. Because right now he's just dominating me where my current Sandworm location is. So I decided I'd move it and see if that helps. I go range and speed. I get additional Void Eyes. No, that's incorrect. I get 2 arc lights on the left to help deal with the chaff situation because we're getting overwhelmed by chaff over there. And I also give arc lights electromagnetic shot to try to take away the techs of my enemies, which is nice. Opponent gets another Melting Point. And he gets range finally on the Melting Point. He gets a 4th Melting Point. Level 4 Farseer in the back is absolutely doing a tremendous amount of damage. He decides to put 3 Melting Points on the right side. With range and multi-melter, he goes defense enhancement level 2. And we're off to the races. The melters are absolutely obliterating my flank on the right side. My worm gets the hell out of there. Left side, the arc lights are dealing with the chaff beautifully, and my DPS can actually focus on the targets that matter, which are these scorpions, removing their range. They're down to 80.5 meters, and they are just absolutely obliterated before they can take their next shot. These melters are getting absolutely wrecked. They're getting EMP'd, and they're getting blinded by my Void Eyes. So they can't fight back at all. Like, they are just completely useless against my army now. So you can see how the increased damage for my opponent really didn't matter later in the game. I am just hitting him with too many debuffs. His units can't fight back. Once they get hit and locked onto, they're pretty much just dead. They're going to run at my units until they get close enough to fire. And 9 times out of 10, they don't even get to do that. My opponent decides he's had enough of my shit and decides to nuke me. Let's see here. I put the firepower control system on my high level 6 Void Eye here in the middle. Forgot to mention that in the previous round. I decided to go range on my wasps to try to get them in a little sooner to deal any kind of damage to these melting points. I'm leveling up units. I decided to go oil. I get 2 attack enhancement, 2 defense enhancement to match my opponent's 2/2 upgrades. Opponent decides to barrier everywhere, thinking I'm going to nuke him. I decided to go oil on the right side to slow his units down. That way they can't get to my units ever. And little did I know there's going to be a nuke. I decided to go range and speed on the left side. Most of my Void Eyes on the left are now level 3. I decided to mobile beacon my worm into the shield. Try to move him back and use him as chaff later in the round. I grab 2 additional Void Eyes, level 1, because I have nothing else to do with my money. I just grab 2 more unit reinforcements and throw them down. Because if they can hit anything, they can still debuff it, which is what I want. I want more lasers. And here we go. Missiles come down, throwing oil everywhere. The left side chaff is dealt with, and the right side, left and right side flanks are done. My air units go in to deal with these multi-melters. The nuke lands, killing anything that was not protected. And as you can see, my worm is now showing up late to the party as chaff to hold these enemy units in place while I pick apart the smaller units. Worms come up and grab all of the Mustangs that are in front of the units. And now we're shooting these melters, taking away their HP, hitting them with EMP. They're super slow inside the oil. We get the left side tower with this massive group of Void Eyes. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 Void Eyes are moving across the map. I have 2 Void Eyes left on the right side. You can see that they're peppering these towers from halfway across the map. And this final melting point has no chance against the onslaught that is the annoying little laser flowers. Just no chance. And that will be the end of the game for my opponent. He played well, but the Void Eye is just a disgusting unit. Once you get far enough along with the Void Eye, once you get them rolling and your opponent doesn't actually register that that's what you're doing, by the time they notice, it's too late. Scorpions with siege mode seem to do really well against this, but most of the units in the game just do not have enough range to combat these silly little flowers, these silly little laser eyes. So, I mean, you really got to get on them with chaff, or you need to distract them with something. But big units, giants, titans on the ground, they'll just get obliterated by these things. And if we go back to the battlefield real quick and look at the units, I had a level 5 Void Eye that did 465,000. I had a level 7 Void Eye that did 829,000. a level 5 with 227,000. That was a later one. This is a level 7 that did 638,000. I've done millions of DPS with Void Eyes this round, or this game. Millions. Here's another one that did 243. These last ones that came in the last round did 30,000. This one did 229. This one did 120. This one did 150. This one did 67. And this one did 173. Give me just a second. All right. Thanks for coming back. I did a quick tally of all the damage my Void Eyes did, and this is the result. 3.18 million on just the Void Eyes. Just the Void Eyes, nothing else. Nothing else on my board, just the Void Eyes. 3.18 million damage over the course of the game. And over half of that is the first 3 that I put on the battlefield in round 1. So, Void Eye carry, it's very much a thing. You can see that I didn't even click aerial mode in this game. I felt like I didn't need to. It would have reduced the range by 10, but it would have given you more movement speed, and it could attack air and ground. I would have clicked that had my opponent gone any sort of air in this game, and the result pretty much would have been the same. However, my units would just move faster, so they probably would have done more damage because they were able to move around the map much faster. And most of them wouldn't have died to the ground army as well, so that would help. But I decided not to go air just because my opponent had no air to worry about. So I didn't have to shoot up at all. As you can see, most of my army doesn't even shoot into the air. The only thing I have that shoots up is my wasps, I think. So that was a poor choice on my opponent analyzing my board, seeing what my weaknesses were. My weaknesses was air. But had I started to have any problems with air, I would have immediately clicked the aerial mode, and that would have made this even better. So take that for what you will. I don't know for carry text what would be better in place of aerial mode. I think this is pretty damn solid. The only thing I would recommend in place of aerial mode, if you want to use something else as your upshoot, would be the EMP armor. So that way, if your enemy does hit your units, you just get the EMP for free, rather than relying on something like an arc light or another unit to get that electromagnetic in for you. But this is a pretty solid build. I've done this aerial mode tech in another game previously that I cast, and it was pretty much just like this. You're debuffing the enemy units so badly that they can't fight back. So I think the Void Eye is in a pretty solid spot. I think they got it right where it needs to be. And if you don't realize that your opponent's going Void Eye carry, you're in trouble. And I'm not quite sure what the response is to fix this. It might be Energy Shield Wasps with AA or ground specialty. You just need fast moving units that can close the distance and get onto these as soon as possible, because they are a nightmare to deal with once the ball gets rolling. Anyway, like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you thought about this game. Let me know what you think about my casting. Is it getting better? Do you enjoy it? Are you enjoying this style of after analysis rather than in the middle when I'm trying to make decisions while casting my gameplay? Let me know what you think. I appreciate your time. Have a great day.